For the Southern California Prep Insider, I'm Keith DeMolder here for another edition of the Best of the Rest podcast. We're here from USC for another playoff edition of the Best of the Rest, and what a wild playoffs it has been. We apologize, by the way, for the lateness of the pod. Usually it comes out on Thursdays, but obviously there's been some tragic events in Los Angeles that have happened. The borderline shooting happening late Wednesday night into Thursday, and then a recent fire happening on Thursday up there in Newbury Park in North LA. So it's been a very hectic couple of days, very tragic couple of days, unfortunately, for some of these communities in North Los Angeles. And our thoughts and prayers go out to the families affected. A lot of kids from Oaks Christian in that area, a lot of Thousand Oaks High, everybody in that area. We're wishing you guys the best. Just know we're there for you. If you ever need anything, reach out to us because it's a very unfortunate situation out there in North LA at borderline, as well as just the surrounding areas with this fire. So either way, we're going to have a little bit more of an upbeat podcast. We're going to try and lift people's spirits despite this tragic sort of week here. The best of the rest, folks, the best of 8-man D3, D2. We're going to get right into playoff coverage right now with the 8-man division. Sherman Oaks CES taking on Animo Robinson in the championship game. That is tomorrow night, Saturday night. That is at Fairfax High School. Of course, I will be there. I have to be there. It's a big game, the biggest game of the year in the 8-man division to see who is the best of the rest. Sherman Oaks CES, 46-16, a victory over New Designs University Park. I was at that game. We'll get to that game in a little bit. Animo Robinson, 42-6 over Fulton. They took care of business against the 4 seed. So, again, it's a rematch of last year's 8-man championship. Defensively this year, Animo Robinson has only allowed 14 points in their last 5 games. They've looked very good as of late. Last year, they played in the regular season against Socius, who was the 2016 champ. Animo Robinson was the 2015 champ. AR then beat them 38-8, and then again 34-20 in the championship game. I was there at that one. Animo Robinson had a talented squad last year, and they have another talented squad this year. Darius Orange, a big part of that. Coach has been just so regimented every single week of the year, and we saw a little bit of a hype video this week. They're ready. They are hungry, but so is Sherman Oaks CES. It could be more the same, could be something different. Sherman Oaks CES running back Daniel Llamas was an absolute beast last week, ripping off touchdown left and right. I thought that they did leave some points on the field, though, in terms of their 2-point conversions, but I'm sure that will come, that will change come this week. As well, Bryce Horton, a guy who's competing all night long on both sides of the ball. Watch for him on Saturday night defensively. Then for Animo Robinson, just taking a look at this team, Alex Zaragoza, a guy, very accurate passer, but he's really mobile. He might as well call himself Verizon because he's just so mobile. The size of Animo Robinson roster, certainly it will work in their favor, just having more guys on the field in case there's some injuries, because those happen. It's an unfortunate part of the game. But having more kids, always a good thing. So we'll see what happens there. It's a next man up mentality in 8-man, even though the roster's a little bit limited. So we'll see come Saturday night. If I had to give a score prediction for the game, it's going to be close. It's going to be very tight. Socius can run the ball very well, but they also can throw the ball too. Don't forget that. So it's going to be tough. I don't think any defense is going to be played in this game. It's going to be a high-scoring game, especially with Animo Robinson playing the way that they're playing right now. So I'm going to say it's probably going to be somewhere in the 40s. I think it's going to be a 48-42 win. I think Animo pulls it out. Or maybe I think they take an early lead. That's probably what happens. They'll take an early lead, and then Socius will come back towards the end of the game and make things interesting. But ultimately, I think AR is going to get yet another crown. They're going to go back-to-back. The Monarchs, what do you expect, folks? They're the Monarchs. They have crowns. That's what their whole mascot's all about. So naturally, they win rings. They win championships. We'll see this year. Maybe Socius can pull up the upset. That said, now moving to Division 3. Santee with a big win over Jordan. 47-12 was the win in that game. The running game was fantastic. 450 yards and 7 touchdowns on just 39 carries. Joseph Todd, the section's best rusher, 225 yards and 4 touchdowns. Santee absolutely blowing out Jordan in that game, just left and right. Andre Herrera as well added 112 yards and a touchdown. Santee, the #1 seed for a reason. Expect them to win the title this year. Lincoln, 42-35 over Legacy. Lincoln went off with a big win thanks to a kid named Andre Watkins. 289 yards and 3 TDs. Gio Suarez also with 148 yards and a score through the air. Lincoln, 9 sacks, including a big play defensively through the air, a pick six. It was a wild one as Legacy almost came back in that fourth quarter, but ultimately Lincoln with too much of a lead, and they won that one by a touchdown. Manual Arts with a 42-7 win over Poly. Jalen McElroy, 141 yards and a touchdown through the air, 128 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And get this, he's a two-way player, folks. He can do it all. 2 interceptions, including a pick six. Player of the week by far, Jalen McElroy. He continues to impress. A big game, though, at Gardena this week for Manual Arts. Speaking of Gardena, 40-7 win over Rivera. Gardena, a lot better than I thought. 539 yards of total offense. I just want to apologize to Gardena. Counting you guys out, I said you guys were going to be upset. No upsets. No upsets to speak of. 539 yards of total offense. Quanta Pugh as well as Nehemiah Seal both threw 2 passes and both threw touchdowns for 37 and 41 yards. As well, Daquan Paul, 117 yards in a score on the ground. 317 yards on just 31 carries. So, unbelievable rushing stats there. That's almost a first down per carry. 317 yards on 31. Unbelievable. Watch out for Gardena. They like to run the ball, so expect that game against Manual Arts to be very run-heavy from Gardena, almost exclusively. Fremont with a 36-14 win over Mendez. Despite 210 yards rushing, Mendez could only punch it in twice that game. Marquez blanking Panorama, 35-0. Monroe, 42-15 over Contreras. The 2 Cams, Cam Lord as well as Cameron Senegal. Cam Lord, 12 for 15 for 208 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also rushed for 53. Cameron Senegal, meanwhile, 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. Look at that game for Cam Lord, though. 12 for 15 for 208 yards and 4 TDs. Only missed 3 passes on the night. That's a fantastic game. Meanwhile, Contreras with 155 yards of total offense. So clearly Monroe looking very good offensively and defensively. Chatsworth, meanwhile, blanking Hollywood, 42-0. 42 first half points, and that's all she wrote there from Chatsworth. Taking a look at some games upcoming this week. Santee will be taking on Lincoln. Manual Arts taking on Gardena. Fremont versus Marquez. And then Monroe versus Chatsworth. As predicted, Lincoln with the upset win over Legacy. We saw that one coming. But otherwise, just want to apologize for Captain Mike last week. I mean, this guy, I don't know him very personally. He claims that he is me. Either way, not some very good picks. Clearly, the Dunkin' Donuts was getting to his head. Too much sugar. Either way, the seeding committee of the computer was correct with these rankings. All the top seeds really, with some good wins. The one game I did catch my eye though, Marquez when they blanked Panorama, 21 fourth quarter points from Marquez. I thought that game was going to be closer, but Marquez pulling it off. From D3 as well, Manual Arts looked very good. Jalen McElroy, he's so passionate. He wants to give this team a ring, the first ring since the 80s. This is a Manual Arts squad, as we've mentioned, through and through. 17 championships, so watch out for them. Moving on to the Division II bracket now. Franklin with a 41-0 win over George Washington Prep. Alfred Bobadilla bouncing back after that Eagle Rock loss. 225 yards, 4 touchdowns. Daniel Phillips with 6 catches for 107 yards and a score. Hugo Escobedo, 4 sacks. Watch out for that Franklin D-line. William Samayoa also with a pick. Another Northern League matchup this week as they play Torres. Speaking of Torres, they won 20-0 over Chavez. Locke, 48-6 over Hollywood. Watch out for the quarterback Michael Biemi, who threw and rushed for a couple touchdowns in that big win over the Sheiks. Arleta squeaked out a win over University, 38-25. Speaking of rushing teams, 417 yards and 5 touchdowns for Arleta, including 325 yards and 4 touchdowns from James Ochoa, one of the best kept secrets, really, from Arleta. Maybe not a secret anymore. People know about him. But he's a workhorse. 33 carries in that game. Watch out there for Arleta. Canoga Park, blanking View Park, 41-0. Bell, 45-8 over Kennedy. 347 rushing yards, 173 yards, and 3 touchdowns from the running back Joseph Valladares, as well as Robert Castro with 48 yards and 2 scores. Bell, as a team, now over 2,000 yards rushing for the season. Israel Trapala, a guy to watch out for defensively. 11 tackles for loss this year, so watch out for that Bell squad. Roosevelt with a romp over Verdugo Hills, 63-36. They have 2 1,000-yard rushers, as we mentioned. Frankie Cruz, Santos Rivera, and along with them, Ramaje Brunfield, Angel Ochoa, Carlos Perez. The rushing attack for Roosevelt is deadly, and once again they showed it against Verdugo Hills that night. Wilson, 65-14 over Marshall. Marshall was bound to put up some points, but I didn't think, it was just going to be 14. Wilson, 65-14, the win thanks to big plays from Julian Hernandez, 14 for 28, 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, talk about a juxtaposition. Matthew Moreno, he had 2 passes in the game. One was intercepted. The other, a 62-yard touchdown score. Not too bad of a night for Moreno, to say the least, as well. Isaiah Abdullah and DeAnthony Jackson combined for 11 catches for 287 yards and 4 TDs. So this whole Wilson offense, as we mentioned, they like to run the up-tempo game. Quite good. Watch out for the Mules. Some games to watch out for this week as well. Franklin taking on Torres, Northern League matchup. Expect Franklin to win that game as they have already beaten Torres this year. Locke taking on Arleta, Canoga Park taking on Bell, and then Roosevelt taking on Wilson. So in those games, I'd say give me Franklin, give me Arleta, give me Bell, and then give me Roosevelt. Saying Roosevelt on the podcast is going to pull up the upset over Wilson. I think the rushing attack is what takes them quite far. Either way, the game of the week, Socius taking on New Designs University Park. Daniel Yamas, as well as the rest of this offense, was really just putting up scores through and through, and it was interesting. I talked with the Socius head coach, Damian Vanarski, as well as that running back, Daniel Yamas, about their big win and just how confident they are going into the 8-man final. Head coach D, as they call him, he had an interesting post-game interview because when he was talking with his team, he said, "We are the best team in this 8-man division. We are the best team in LA." And I just thought that was such a bold statement. I mean, every team thinks they're the best, but to say that in the semifinal game, and they obviously did have a big win, I thought it was very bold. I asked him about that after the game. Take a look at the interview. For the Southern California Prep Insider, I'm Keith DeMolder here from the Center for Enriched Studies here in Sherman Oaks. A big win for the Knights, 46-16 over New Designs University Park. I'm here with head coach Vanarski as well as Daniel Yamas. Big game tonight. Touchdowns left, right, and center, and they are going to the ship for the 3rd straight season. They're likely to take on Animo Robinson. Firstly, I'm going to start with you, Coach. What does it mean? You said in the postgame that you were the best team in the section. Defend that title.
I feel that we are the best team. We're just more dedicated. We are extremely devoted to what we are as far as Knights and what we represent. We do hard-nosed football, and we just don't quit. So I think that's a factor that is needed to be a championship team.
So you guys went to the championship last year. You come back this year. What has changed from a year ago to this year? Why do you think you're going to win it this year?
One of the things that I did at the beginning of the season is I made our schedule a little bit hard. The 4 losses that we do have are Southern Section teams that were ranked top 10 in the state at the time. So they were a little bit harder for our kids and what we play. So I think that prepared them for the path that they're on right now.
What did you see tonight from your guys? Obviously, it's a 30-point win. Some will see it as a blowout, but what did you take away from it?
They showed heart. That's the bottom line. I think they showed a lot of heart. They were facing adversity at times, and they just came through and pulled through it with heart.
Danny Yamas, you were a big part of this win tonight. Multiple touchdowns, rushing, catching. How did you feel tonight?
I felt amazing. I was a little nervous before the game, but my coach reassured me to let it all out on the field, and I think I did that. But most importantly, my linemen blocked for me, and I'm most proud of them.
Can you take me some of those pregame nerves?
Well, I threw out my pasta that we had for lunch.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I let it go once we were on the field, and, yeah, I just played with my teammates. We gave 100%, that's for sure.
So going from throwing up to now going to the championship, how does that feel?
Better than anything. I feel amazing. 120% of, amazing nerves. I feel good.
You're going to the championship next week. Sherman Oaks CES, they lost last year. What are you going to do to make sure that they win it this year?
Well, I'm going to give it 100%. I know my brother's going to give it 100%. To try and be Animo. I think we have a good chance because we prepared very much and we prepare every day. We condition, we grind, we hit, and I think we have a good chance.
The Knights have taken the night, 46-16, the win. We'll send it now back to the podcast. A big game for these guys next week against Animo Robinson. So with that said, that's going to bring us to the end of the podcast. A big game coming this week, Saturday at Fairfax, 6 p.m. I'm going to be there myself, so make sure to stop by, say hi. The 8-man football final, make sure to stop by. It's an interesting type of game, folks. Don't Don't discredit A-Man just because they only have 8 players on the field. But with that, we're going to sign off here from USC. Football season coming to a close soon. We'll get you those championship games, of course. Make sure to check out all of our other content on YouTube. Check out the other podcasts with Connor and Alex. Well, that's going to do it for me here for the best of the rest. I'm Keith DeMolder signing off for the Southern California Prep Insider. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.